It Takes Two is a lovely little video game, chock-a-block with delightful gameplay moments and amusing diversions. It's a truly wonderful game, well worthy of the Whittle Jefferies Game Award for Game of the Year 2021 accolade. That is, of course, if you completely ignore the story about the abominable woman and her utter putz of a husband and the most annoying fucking book since Twilight. But that aside, It Takes Two stands alone in that it's a truly cooperative adventure like no other. The moment-to-moment gameplay is so creative and inventive, and the locations and set pieces so charming and fun, that it called to my mind the work of the champions of 3D platformers themselves, the one and only Nintendo Company Limited Japan. But it also called to my mind the fact that Nintendo, who are also the champions of the party game, has never made a dedicated couch co-op adventure that matches the scale of It Takes Two. But why, I ask you? Well, let's get into it. Joseph Faris and the team at Hazelight Studios have been strong proponents for couch co-op in recent times, with games like It Takes Two and A Way Out. And you could argue their first title, Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, is also a co-op game. If you count your left and right thumbs as two separate people, which I do, their games feel like proper shared adventures for two people to enjoy, together. And there's nothing quite like sitting beside someone on the sofa and enjoying a game together. It's certainly, to my mind, the most fun you can have with another person with your trousers on. And the kind of split-screen couch co-op gameplay being crafted by Hazelight is becoming rarer and rarer these days. Yeah, sure, you've got your Little Big Planets, your Trines, your Unraveleds, your Diablos, your Legos, Cities, Undercovers, but these games are few and far between, and they aren't as firmly rooted in the split-screen co-op experience as It Takes Two. Even Nintendo has never created an adventure so firmly committed to two-player. On the contrary, multiplayer in Nintendo games feels like something of an afterthought. Not to say that it's been shoehorned in, but actually, now that I think of it, yeah, maybe a little bit. Which feels weird to say because Nintendo has always been the friend of friends who like to game together. They always like to depict really believable families and friends playing together in their marketing materials, all hooting and hollering and having a gay old time with Smash Brothers and Mario Kart Tennis Party Golf versus Sonic at the Olympic Wii Sports Games. But again, they've never really made a full adventure focused solely on teamwork and collaborative play between two players. Not that I can think of anyway. In many Nintendo games where multiplayer is an option, it never really feels like it's implemented in a way that feels like a tailored experience. You know, like how I was saying it feels like an afterthought? Well, look at titles like Mario Galaxy and Captain Toad, where the second player is little more than a reticule, shooting star bits or turnips just to help out a bit while player one does all the fun stuff. Ditto Bowser's Fury, where the second player just floats around as Bowser Jr., again, watching player one do all the fun stuff. It's like the gameplay equivalent of giving the second player the off-brand Duff controller with the shoulder button that sticks. And look at mainline Mario multiplayer. While playing New Super Mario Bros. Together with friends can be a laugh riot, the laughs are more a result of how chaotic 2D Mario becomes with more players on screen. The joyful satisfaction of Mario's level design is strained by the overcrowding of multiplayer, because the game itself doesn't stretch itself to accommodate those players. So small platforms can become a squeeze, and trickier sections that require careful timing for one player become certain death traps for multiple users, with players bouncing off one another's heads, scrambling for power-ups, and someone inevitably getting jostled into a pit. The whole thing feels chaotic. The ability to pick up your partner might seem like a helpful workaround for the pair of you to navigate said trickier platforming sections, but actually it's all too easy to pick your partner up and throw them into oblivion by accident, or more likely irresistible temptation. With two players, Mario is much harder. The goal of single-player Mario is to reach the flag. The goal of Mario Co-op is to reach the flag in spite of your co-op partner. And while it is great fun in its own right, it's just the whole experience tends to feel more competitive than cooperative. And the fact that each level of Super Mario 3D Land ends with a leaderboard further suggests a lean towards the competitive. It starts to slide into the arena of couch co-op games that are designed to put strain on the personal relationships between two players, like Overcooked and Snipperclips. Stressful. But what about Animal Crossing, please? That's not stressful. Well, it is a bit if you're player 2. In New Horizons local party play, the second player has a diminished role, with no access to their Nook phone or their pockets, and gets magically teleported next to player 1's side if they get too far away. And in the same way New Super Mario Bros. Platforms appear to shrink beneath the hubbub of multiple plumbers, the same is true of the list of activities available to villagers when other villagers come to visit. Having farted about with friend codes, airport gates, and sat through arrival animations, when your friends finally do show up, you'll find certain in-game pastimes become blocked, and the game feels more restricted. You can't do any redecorating, construction and landscaping is off limits, and you can't donate anything to the museum. Most of the time you can't wait for your friends to piss off again so you can go back to enjoying the full game proper. So while it's a really lovely gesture for Nintendo to add these multiplayer features to these games, a nice gesture is all it really feels like sometimes. Certainly nothing on the level of scope of It Takes Two's approach to co-op. In addition to its great many achievements in game design and its shiny gold Jeffy award, It Takes Two did something else. It highlighted for me a glaring hole in Nintendo's offerings. No, not a new F-Zero, but a proper co-op experience. It Takes Two made me yearn for something like this from Nintendo. Not because It Takes Two was lacking where Nintendo might surpass, not at all. It Takes Two is a truly wonderful game and it feels like a Nintendo game. Although that said, Nintendo won't potentially ruin their game with some dreadful story about an obnoxious couple who are both as annoying as each other. No, but it just awakened inside of me a longing for more of this kind of co-op experience. And it made me wonder, what could Nintendo achieve if they tried something like this? They clearly love getting co-op into all their games, so why haven't they done one that was solely co-op? The nearest they've come would be Luigi's Mansion 3, but I think the fact that works well in two-player is just inadvertent and not really from any major endeavour on Nintendo's part. So one might guess one of the reasons split-screen co-op isn't as popular now with game devs as it used to be is because a big chunk of the audience are fixated on frame rates and 4K graphics, and rendering a game world twice from two different perspectives can put a strain on these things. But these aren't really issues that Nintendo are particularly concerned with. Their presentation style has never really been about high fidelity, and you could argue they've had plenty of experience rendering games from two screens simultaneously, with the 2DS, 3DS and Wii U. So one would think a dedicated split-screen game would fit in their sphere of interest nicely. And then there's online multiplayer taking precedence over local multiplayer. Although Nintendo isn't really overly thrilled about that either. Not if their online servers are anything to go by. Bruh. I suppose there is danger in making a game that is exclusively co-op. It adds a barrier of entry. The more people required to play, the harder it is to play casually. You need to get a bunch of the fart knockers you know together in the same room at the same time and stuff, and it's an arseache. Plus, I hate all my friends and family and they hate me, and I'm sure you're the same. Or maybe Nintendo don't like the idea of games that can't be enjoyed solo. But then, Mario Party isn't really supposed to be played solo. I mean, it's got party in the title for God's sake. And anyways, one of the unique selling points of the Switch is that it comes with two controllers as standard, the two Joy-Cons. But maybe that's the reason they don't want to do a fully co-op game, because usually only one of them works, if you catch my drift. And so the dedicated co-op game is an almost untapped reservoir of unique gameplay opportunities. Who knows what new experiences could be born from the minds at Nintendo working on adventures aimed at two people sat next to each other. And as it is, it seems like we haven't seen much in the way of fun experimental multiplayer experiences from Nintendo since the Switch launched, with games like ARMS and 1-2 Switch, which is a shame, because those suckers are 7 years old now. And with Nintendo actually making plans to increase production of the Switch rather than release a new one, don't you think a big new co-op adventure could really revitalise that old hardware? But I suppose Tears of the Kingdom will do that fine. Hey, maybe that will be co-op. Also, there's all these amiibo lying around the place. Maybe we could do the Skylanders thing again. Maybe not. But I do really think a strong, co-op adventure-oriented release from Nintendo would be enriching to the Switch, and enriching to the industry as a whole. And most of all, it would be enriching to the people who want to play games together. You can imagine it, can't you? An It Takes Two style game featuring Mario and Luigi. 3D Mario style gameplay with Zelda style co-op puzzles and a peppy Paper Mario style narrative. I just don't know why they haven't done it yet. Maybe they haven't thought of it. Maybe I'm some kind of genius. Nintendo, if you're listening, make a game just like It Takes Two. Trust me, I'm a genius.